like to open the meeting for the Conservation Commission at 7:32. And has anybody got any omissions or corrections to approve the minutes for September 24th?
I have a couple of things, but they're very, very minor. So, I guess one that I'll mention is the last continued public hearing notice of intent phase 2K and continued public hearing notice of intent phase 4. The second sentence says the third part review, third party reviewed, yeah. So third party reviewer, right?
Yeah.
That's it. And there's a couple other things, but only editorials.
Thank you.
Anybody else got any corrections? If not, can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Can I have a second from somebody?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Citizens input, Long Lake Beach Bath House.
She actually couldn't make it, so she asked if she could get on the November 5th meeting, just to ask the Conservation Commission if you're paying attention to what the Parks and Rec Department is doing.
I can vaguely remember that thing that wasn't there and then it was.
Oh,
What was
That beach house.
the cement block one that's there
Yeah,
now.
I wouldn't be a bit surprised that maybe Harry Gerby had something to do with that, or Foster Kendall was one of those things that just showed up.
Well, I know they're planning to, well, there've been two plans. The first one was a single-story, seasonal one. The second one was a two-story, full-time one with the Park and Rec occupying the top floor. Both of them kind of in the same position on the beach, raising all the current structures and replacing it with this storage place for the boats, etc. And the second design was going to have a porch on the top with a view to the lake and a community space.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's the last I heard, and the last meeting they were going to look into the second option, but there are a lot of issues, including parking and the septic system, things like that would have to be re-looked at if it's a full-time building, and heat, it has to have heat. So, but I don't know. I don't know where it's at right now. Whether they've designed
I told her she's obviously welcome to come in. The commission does not have an application in front of them, so I think she just wants to voice concerns.
Now who?
But
So this is a citizen about
Holly O'Donoghue, she was in before
Okay,
about this.
just
So
wondering where
she'll
it's
be in.
at.
She'll need to speak for herself. I'm not sure what.
Okay.
Okay.
Gutierrez, informal discussion of 225 Taylor Street.
Hello.
My name's Ed Scioli. I'm with the Gutierrez Company, and with me tonight is Will Park of Sims Manning McKee and Associates. He's our civil engineer for a project that we have permitted at 225 Taylor Street here in Littleton. We're here tonight to talk about the order of conditions that you folks issued for that project. It's actually due to expire this week, and to go into detail, Will, would you just explain what we're here?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Thank you for allowing us to come speak with you. Just to recap, we were here last fall, in fall 2017, to get an extension on the order of conditions. There was a request that we back survey the delineation, and then Dennis Lowry from AECom walked the site with Amy Green and did several follow-up plots of a few questionable areas, and it was deemed at that time that the delineation was still valid. Then this commission granted an extension and made it clear that was the final extension for 1 year only, stating the desire was that the site be redesigned to comply with current stormwater regs in the local bylaw. And as Ed mentioned, that order expires on the 19th, this Friday. Gutierrez intends, and we are currently working on redesigning the site with a new notice and plan to submit a new notice of intent to meet the current stormwater regs and local bylaw. The design will not encroach further into the resource areas. And we plan to use the recently confirmed delineation in that notice of intent. We still feel that it is a valid delineation. Now, admittedly, the 2018 has been a very busy year, so we are still working on this redesign. It's helpful for the Gutierrez company as they market this site to say that their permits are active. They recently renewed their special permit in January, so all permits are active with the exception of this one as of Friday. So we respectfully request an extension of roughly 3 months for us to submit the notice of intent, go through the hearing process, and hopefully receive an approval so that there's no lapse in permit approvals for the site, and the delineation will remain active for that time.
Any feelings, anybody?
I thought we granted 1 year.
Yeah.
That's what I would stick
And it's
with.
been sitting there for the last 10.
Yeah, no, I think we made it very clear it was 1 year.
Well, I mean, can we have evidence that, you know, how far along you've gotten so that we can be sure that you are actually making progress?
We didn't bring materials to present the status of it, but we're actively designing it, looking at the recharge, especially, as you all know, is the major change in the 2008 regulations. And the detention basins around the perimeter of the site in the existing order are all the traditional just hole in the ground dry detention basins. We're looking at ways to change those to other BMPs that the current regs provide, like constructed wetlands and ones that might fit the site a little bit better.
Andrew, you got an opinion? You can
So if we were to grant you 3 more months, your intention is to file a new notice of intent regardless. Is that what I'm hearing?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I guess I'm amenable to that, considering that you will wind up filing a new NOI anyway. I'm willing to work with you. I am, at least, but...
Now, I guess
I think is the main intent is to keep the wetland line live? Is that
Correct.
one of the biggest reasons?
I mean, would closing the previous NOI stop the use of that wetland line?
Yeah.
It would.
Well, and that's why I wasn't sure how you all would see it, if you would want to tie new delineation.
See, don't
They're
we
moving
use,
so fast that there's really not time to do an ORED. There's no point in it.
I
don't we
think I
use
would
old
like.
delineations? I
I
mean,
mean,
if they're not too old?
We just did spot checks of the last delineation. I'd probably want to get out there and walk the whole line again. It's been a while.
We had the entire delineation on the project side within 100 feet of the limit of work flagged and walked. So it was only the backside that we have never proposed to do any work in the buffer of that wasn't reflagged. And we'll present all that with the new NOI.
I guess my question is, I mean, why would the previous delineation not be able to be used, I guess, in the new NOI? If it's recently walked, what?
Amy,
It is old. Dennis and I walked it, and as you mentioned, I had a couple points where they wanted to check it, but you guys haven't seen it in ages.
Yeah, it's not recent.
But I mean, if they submitted it with, if they submitted those plans with the new NOI, wouldn't they still be valid? I mean, why would they have to continue this just so that they can continue the wetland?
That's our interpretation, that we can submit that current delineation.
rather than a reviewed one. Amy has walked it.
No,
She-
but even if they submit, if you resubmit to an NOI, we would walk, I mean, we usually do that when they submit NOIs, we walk them again. Why would that? I just, I guess
I mean,
I don't understand
they
why.
could submit a wetland delineation And that wetland delineation could be the one that's existing.
Right.
But like you said, we would walk it anyway.
Right. If
So it'd be
somebody
like
submits an
it'd be
NOI.
like a contractor.
With a new project staked
Right,
out.
right. With the new project staked, it'd be like
Right.
just them doing a delineation ahead of time.
Right, exactly. So I guess I don't
But I wouldn't
understand
call
the
it.
need.
I wouldn't call it like the old. I'd call it this is the
This
wetland
is the
delineation.
right.
That's
So-
what I would call it.
So
But-
I don't see the advantages of going against our previous word and saying that this is the year, just letting it close and then just submitting an NOI with the wetland delineation. Why, I guess I don't, is it the fact that you don't want it to expire, like for a couple months?
Because it would be under the old regulations, right?
Well, I think
Well,
there.
it's gonna be under the new one anyway, right? For the new NOI.
You said it was for like marketing purposes.
I agree that administratively, there's no real reason, and we're not trying to like pull a fast one on you by having them lapse, other than it's nicer for their paper trail and the story that they're telling possible tenants that they're constantly marketing to, that they have all their ducks in a row. It's just a cleaner story.
I see.
Is this where they were gonna have the marijuana place?
No. No.
Oh, is
I
it
mean,
so?
they might if they
No, the
get.
growing part, I thought that was zoned for that at town meeting.
It could be. It
Really?
might be.
Yeah.
But
We didn't submit that application.
You did.
Rachel, you got anything you wanna add to this?
I mean, I'm sympathetic to your reasoning, but I'm like, I don't.
We were very firm, and one of our colleagues on the board here was exceptionally firm, who's not present
Who's not
tonight.
present?
But I do recall her being extremely firm and was very hesitant even to give the 1 year
Yes.
addition. So I need to hold the line firm and say no more extensions.
if, say, we did allow a 3-month extension, would you submit with this new NOI a fresh delineation along with that project?
No, we would be submitting the existing one.
Existing one. Okay.
We've spoken to Dennis as recently as Friday, and he's convinced that that delineation will be valid, whether the commission walks it this fall, or in the spring, it'll remain valid.
Okay.
It stayed the same for 10 years, and
That's hard to believe, because that's kind of a wet site in places. And this is all new board, basically, pretty near new board members, except for 3 of us.
Good point.
I would tend to hold the line too, especially since you don't really have evidence that you are actually making progress on it. You can, not that we don't believe your word, but I would need more to hang our hat on if we're gonna go against what we said.
I would like to bring this to a vote. We've got other things to throw around.
So.
Can we vote
It
tonight? Or
doesn't
we
even
up for?
necessarily, this is just.
This is an informal discussion.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
we're not
but
really
there
voting.
again, they'd like to
I
have the
think
full
we're just-
consensus of the board, and I think.
Can we actually vote?
You
It's an informal
can
discussion.
give feedback.
Yeah, vote to give them, yeah.
We're giving feedback. I think that's all we can do.
So, but it's already lapsed as of Friday?
No, it's
No.
No,
Friday.
it's
This
current.
Friday.
This Friday.
this upcoming
Oh.
Friday.
So if we do nothing, it lapses.
Yeah.
But can we vote?
But I mean,
So-
if it's a discussion, we weren't gonna vote anyway.
Well, other than you have a
That's true.
formal vote of either disapproval or approval. That's what my point was
Of the
being.
extension.
Yeah. And I'm getting the feeling that most people would rather just let it go. Is that correct?
Well, that's my vote.
That's my vote as well.
I'm willing to work, but I think I'm outnumbered here.
Rachel?
I mean, yeah, I'm kind of feeling like, hold
I-
the line, like I get it, but.
I don't mind helping, but this
Right.
project has been at least 10 years or more that it goes back. I guess I would just as soon let it go and refile at this point. It's been long enough that the for sale signs have been up there at the end of Foster Street and nothing done.
So that's the consensus?
You got one more or less willing to work and the rest,
Thank you.
I think we're kind of,
Appreciate it. Okay.
okay?
Well, thank you for the consideration. We'll see you in a month or so.
Yeah, we look forward to you coming in and
Thank you for your time.
working with you.
Yeah, certainly the sooner you can get it in, hopefully the more quickly you can do a site walk too.
Yes, that's the goal.
knows
Before
how
you
the
get
fall's
snow
gonna go.
cover.
While
Once you
it's
get
still
snow
walkable.
cover, you're done.
Yep.
Or all the
Oh,
emergent
that's a
stuff.
good point.
Yeah.
It's getting towards that, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
You farmers, you worry too much about the weather.
Right now, I'm dealing with a swamp and a cornfield. Cobb's Land Boardwalk Repair Expenditures.
I think I mentioned this last time that one of the boardwalks out there is falling apart at, I think, both ends actually. So Rick Finley, the land stewards, want to repair it. They've got a couple boards from Park and Rec, but they need to buy more, probably not to exceed $110 if that's minimal to you guys.
That need a vote?
Sure, let's take a vote.
Do we need to put a little more higher ceiling on it or not?
He came in with $100.83 or something, so I said, well, let's make it 125, just in case you need bolts or something.
So I'll make a motion that the board grant up to $125 for the repair of the boardwalk.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Good. Bylaw regulation review, is that something you want to put out at the end of the meeting or not?
I assume so.
Okay.
Yes.
I thought we made good headway last time.
Yeah, I think, except for, there was one question, which I can't remember even what it was, but
Yeah, didn't you, we were gonna do a red line and
I
submit
gave
it?
you the red line, yeah.
Oh.
I gave it to you. I can't believe I did it, but yeah, that's why I figured to put this at the end.
All right, Board of Health proposed regulation change, you know, what's the story on that?
That was just on there in case something else came up, but they have the new, they're proposing some changes, the most pertinent one of which would be a 100-foot setback for systems, not the 50-foot Title V setback. We did some changes, Julie wrote some other comments on it. Board of Health is still messing with it, so it's nothing said at this point.
Okay,
Wait, I'm sorry, 100-foot setback, for
Right now,
all
it's
parts
like-
of the system, or,
I'm not exactly sure what parts.
okay,
I don't think grading would count for that, and I'm not sure how they're doing grandfathering, so.
right, okay. Because I saw they had a hearing last week
Yeah,
on the
November 9th
9th.
or something like that, yeah.
Oh, yeah, we handed that out.
looking down further on the agenda, we need to go into executive session at the end of the meeting, is that?
No, I probably won't need to. There's nothing to report.
Other updates? Is there anything, we're running about
Um,
5 minutes behind.
I got a few things, maybe just pick this up at the end.
Okay, or in between if we have time.
Yeah.
All right, I'd like to open the 7:45 at 7:50, continued public hearing, notice of intent, phase 2, vacant land,
They're in the hall.
access from Spruce Road.
Oh, you're late, you missed your time.
Wait, I know.
apologize.
Close the door.
Hey guys.
Good evening.
Damn, they
Good evening.
For the record, Brian Goodrow with Hancock Associates, along with Dave Cowell. Dave Guthrie may or may not be joining us this evening. I had anticipated that he was going to be here, but
Who's passing his name?
so since the last time we were here, essentially we went through a peer review, and Dave Cowell can kind of summarize exactly what happened with that. And Mr. Karen issued a letter. Essentially, the change to the plan is this guy right here. This is an intermittent stream flag, and it's in the location that we had all kind of agreed upon on the other side of the rock wall. And then you can see the local 50-foot buffer, which there is no work that's proposed within it. We actually didn't change any of the lot plans or grading or anything. There was no work there previously, and will continue to not be any. And then,
Where's that?
this is the 50-foot buffer. off that intermittent stream plant on the other side of the wall. So we're continuing to respect that 50-foot buffer. I was just noting that we didn't actually change the plans, we didn't change grading. It just so happens that that area was pretty much undisturbed to begin with. With that said, I'd like to turn it over to Dave and kind of summarize the peer review sidewalk and the letter and how we came to these conclusions.
Sure. So we did a site walk with Chuck, Karen, Amy, and I, and we visited the site in question. Chuck took a long time out there, really scrutinizing the soils and the vegetation in that area. And ultimately, he came to the same conclusion that we had, that there's really nothing, there's no contiguation of inland bank associated with the stream channel, that it does flatten out, that there's not anything that is first observable break and slope or mean annual high water associated with the channel. And he scrutinized the soils and vegetation in that area as well to see if any of it would classify as bordering vegetated wetland. That would make the downstream channel jurisdictional due to BVW. It is a marginal site, and he did look at the soils and the plants and drew the same conclusion that there's just not enough evidence of soils and vegetation to overcome or make it jurisdictional. So that's it. I don't know if you guys want to talk about that a little bit more. We also looked at 2 isolated features that is that the Phase 4 site, or?
That would be phase.
I'm confused.
It was phase 3. It's actually over in
Phase
this area
3.
here. We did not file a notice of intent in relation to that phase because there are no jurisdictional areas over there.
Okay.
No, I
Okay.
thought you saw
Are they both in
small
phase
one, that one too.
One, is the spring out in phase 4, do you know? Did I ever actually get?
I-
So this is
somewhere?
that rock wall, and then the.
I think it would be
job,
phase
so-
3. Yep. I have the one thing I'm not familiar with is the where the phases
breaks
begin
up.
and end,
Yeah.
and which
Yeah, so-
phase it falls into.
So phase 1, just for clarity, phase 1, which an order of conditions was issued, was kind of the little island, the short cul-de-sac off of Fraser Street. Phase 2 is what's here before you. Phase 3 is actually up in the back corner, and then phase 4 is down parallel with Durkee.
Now, in phase 2, also in his letter, he went through having to accommodate for that channel as a
Yeah.
part of the design. And so I just wanted to have you review how you're handling that channel.
For
So with
drainage
respect to
and
stormwater, essentially, any off-site flows would be going into the roadway, conveyed by the catch basins at the low point and discharged to that same wetland. So we're not altering the path at all. It's essentially going to continue to do what it does, be collected by roadway structures, and then discharge into the same wetlands in the proximate area that it
Well,
does
isn't
today.
this where the channel is, though?
Nope, the channel's right there.
Oh,
So-
right. So
And
because
then,
that's the.
exactly, and then the catch basins are here, so it'll be intercepted by the road, it'll go into this infiltration basin and ultimately discharge essentially in the same location that it does right now. So there's really not an alteration of drainage patterns.
And I don't want to speak on Brian's part, but my understanding is that the flow rates and the volume are the same in the post-construction
Correct.
as in the pre-construction.
So that's.
There's not an increase of volume and an
Yeah,
increase
those
of
are all the
of
calculations
peak
that we
rates.
went through in designing the stormwater management across the entire site, which was part of the definitive subdivision approvals and fully vetted by Green International, and they concur with our calculations.
So just through the cul-de-sac into the basin, or?
Yeah, so it'd be collected by the catch basins into the infiltration basin, and then ultimately discharged to that same general area in the wetlands.
So I read the letter. I could tell that Chuck spent a lot of time out there. And
He did. Yeah, it's not a black and white.
It's not an
area.
easy, obviously not easy
Yep,
to figure that one out.
yep,
It doesn't make a lot of sense in the natural world.
right. I'm in
But-
agreement. And there's a lot of things on the site that are, I guess, counterintuitive to natural process or things that you would
Yeah.
anticipate to see out there, including the isolated features up here where,
Yeah.
you know, I even as a professional, I'm challenged with these things as well. So I
Yeah, so I don't know if it
admit-
just, I don't know if it just
Yeah.
goes underground and follows some kind of something. Something happens to it, but obviously, I agree with Chuck and I agree with you at this
Yeah.
point because
Yeah.
there's no other evidence.
Right. And I think as people with a scientific background, it's not just taking things at face value of you know, the channel stops and it's not jurisdictional, but why is it happening? And that, I think when Julie had said that, you know, her theory may be that there was a drain tile underneath the stone wall, which I hadn't even considered previously. I was thinking about the fact that there's the NRCS map a Hollis rock outcrop area merging into, I think it's like Ridgeberry, fine sandy loams, and also consideration of these areas where we've seen springs pop up in upland areas where I wouldn't expect it. So understanding the underlying aquifer, it's an odd site. It's a
Yeah.
challenging site. So
Well, it's an
I
odd
don't-
site, even the farm pond, you know, further down. It's just
Right.
the whole system is very different.
It is, yep. And counterintuitive to natural process. So it
Yeah.
is.
So it's been difficult for me to
Right.
kind of look at it because
No, and
it
this-
doesn't make any sense. The
Yeah.
whole thing does not make any sense to me.
No, and I've spent considerable amount of time thinking about it as well in terms of lessons learned coming out of this process, of how I approach these items and things that I typically take for granted. Like the Phase 3 parcel, where during the wetland delineation phase, there's nothing mapped on DEP parcels. You look at soils mapping, and you don't expect any hydric soils up there. You look at site topography, and it's well up gradient in an area that you wouldn't expect to find any wetlands. And even with that, in the forested state that it was in, I traversed that area on foot, and it's a little disorienting. So you just wander aimlessly back and forth, hoping that you hit every possible spot.
Right.
And then Amy comes and visits it, and sure enough, there are, I know, right? Give you credit. Amy comes
found
in.
one?
Yeah.
I found
Nice.
two.
Nice.
So there were two.
Non-jurisdictional.
That's what we pay you for.
Right, right. No, and rightfully so. And I admit that I missed those areas as well. But they are, thankfully for us, they're isolated features that are non-jurisdictional. But again, they appear to be sort of seeps or springs that,
Yeah.
as Chuck pointed out, one of the areas that it's actually very interesting in terms of the vegetation.
These guys were totally nerding out. I left early.
Oh, right.
The wetland nerds were
Talking
like-
about plants or everything. Right.
I'm out.
And I actually,
Well,
It's
you're-
too much for me.
You're part of that whole group.
Nope.
yeah.
Should have been right in there, Amy.
No, and this is my first time meeting Chuck, and I was actually very impressed. I think he has a Harvard background in forestry. Very intelligent guy. He corrected me on some plants that I may have been misidentifying, and we. I was, trying to make sense of, again, answering questions of why things are happening. And
Yeah.
looking at this isolated feature, I suspected that it may have been, because there are these pits inside of it, that I thought maybe a farmer had a spring there. And Chuck looked at it and said, no, it looks like somebody tried scratched a few holes test pitting and was hitting water and backed out of there. And that's why you have this area there now that has a few holes
Oh,
and has this
interesting.
vegetation growing. So, yeah, it's certainly a challenging site. I certainly take lessons learned from experiences like this, the challenging ones that aren't easy.
Good.
So I think in the future, especially under ANRAD process, is to really scrutinize areas, and not taking for granted that things that are mapped as upland are in fact upland, and actually, vetting these earlier on in the process.
Well, thank you for getting the second opinion.
Okay.
So with that said, we're here to entertain other questions. Otherwise, we do have Phase 2 and Phase 4 open, and they have been for several months now. Dave, I know, is eager to get going, at least trying to rough this road in.
Okay. And I do, way back when, with the phase 2, you had pulled back some of the slopes, there's a bit of a swale between the erosion control and stuff, so they had done
Exactly.
that. Which is similar to the comment you had on phase 1.
What we tried to do is mirror kind of all of our changes in the direction that the commission wanted on phase 1 into phase 2 and into phase 4.
Okay. So we'd like to make a motion. To issue an order of conditions for,
There's going to be 2 of them.
should we start with the first one?
Sure, why not?
For vacant land access from Spruce Road. Phase 2.
204869.
Sorry, R8130, that's map. Mass DP 204869.
Do I hear a second?
One second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
These have been sitting here a long time. They're kind of dusty.
Cobwebs, yeah.
I'm sorry, who seconded that?
Reed.
Get a chance to do it again.
Oh, make another motion? But have we talked about phase 4? Do we want to talk more about phase 4?
I'm good.
They were always kind of discussed at the same time, way back when.
It's essentially 3 single-family lots. It's only the backyards of those lots. The road is entirely outside of the buffer. For phase 4 is
And none within the 50?
correct. We've respected the 50 everywhere, and we've tried to pull limits of work even further if it makes sense to.
So it looks like the dotted line is the 50, and this line is the outer 100.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to issue an application for vacant land access from Spruce Road, R8130. Has the same land plot number?
Yeah,
Map
'cause they haven't been split up yet.
Oh. And DEP number 204870.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you
All I
very
can
much.
All I can say is you guys never farmed.
Was it? Yeah.
You never farmed very much, but I've come across a lot of that stuff.
No! I've worked in agricultural in the Midwest, but not here in New England.
No, good job.
All right, I appreciate your help.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I got this written down for you guys.
What's that?
Excuse me?
I'm gonna see you on
15
Wednesday,
minutes,
right?
that's
You bought
good.
more land?
Space, 100.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night.
Public hearing notice of intent, Forge Pond Lake Drawdown, map 53, parcel 1, Westford, at outlet structure. Mass DEP file number 204-8XX, seasonal lake drawdown to control non-native evasions, adequate plants. Who wants to speak to that?
It doesn't have
Do you
a
want-
DEP?
Okay.
It does,
or
it
not?
came in today, it's
Right there.
872, and there were DEP comments.
Oh, okay, 872.
Hi, Adam.
Hello.
I didn't know you lived in Littleton, or were on the commission, so nice to see you. So, I guess just to get rolling, this is not the first time that we've been in to get a permit for drawdown. This is a re-up for a couple of reasons, but just to kind of give you a backdrop of where we've been in the last couple of years since our last successful application. So we've been doing this since around 2007, I believe, 2006, 2007, that
You
winter.
sure it isn't for longer than that?
Sorry?
It might be longer than that.
Well, it was
Oh.
not the first time that it was attempted. It was the first time it was successfully actually done. It was 2006. There was an earlier attempt back in the early 90s, and it stopped because a few wells went dry.
Yep.
So when we tried it again back in 2006, 2007, we actually addressed that, deepened those several wells, and from then on, the wells have not been an issue. So what has been an issue, though, has been a little bit of trial and error over the years of seeing what we can actually achieve. So if you were to look at the engineering drawings, it would tell you that on a perfect world, meaning perfect amount of rainfall and everything else going right, that you could get a maximum of 6.5 feet or so. And that's what we were permitted to do on alternating years, going down 5.5 and then 6.5 feet. In practice, it's never been close to that. I think the most that we've ever been able to achieve is about 3.5 feet. So, and that's on a good year. And in some years, in fact, I think more than half of the times we've attempted it, we've actually abandoned it just because we started the drawdown, it rained, and then it rained 2 days later, and we just didn't have the right conditions to get a good freeze and to get what we needed out of the drawdown, so we just bailed out. So after having some years where it was still, still feel like it was useful to do. We were getting reasonable relief, especially for the shallow coves that really get socked into some of these invasive plants. Those folks especially felt like this was something we needed to keep doing, and as a group, we're pretty committed to trying to do this in a sustainable way that doesn't have us going and chasing with herbicides every year. So that's something we'd like to keep doing, and in order to do it right and to do it effectively, we took a little bit of a time out and spent some money to figure out from an engineering perspective what the limitations were. So one of the things that we did was get an engineering evaluation and sediment evaluation of the outlet channel to see exactly where there might be some limiting factors. Was sediment building up at the outlet structure at the dam, where there's basically these sluice gates that come up, and if you've got sediment building up behind it, that might limit the drawdown level. So the good news is, to make this as short as possible, is that if you know where the Westford Town Beach is, so decades of beach nourishment there. Every time they bring in sand to kind of freshen up the beach, it's right next to the outlet channel at Stony Brook. So sand has just been regularly migrating over to the outlet channel, and there's this berm that's built up. So with a little bit of what we're not going to call it dredging, we're going to call it maintenance excavation, which might be a different project in the next year or so if we get some funding. We can get another solid 1.5 feet or so out of that just by that alone. So that's a good thing, and I think that'll make it a lot more effective and a lot more predictable.
So you do that without a permit?
Sorry?
You do that without a permit?
No. We would do that. We would come before you again, or at least, I don't know if we'd need to go before you and Westford. I think for that project it would be only Westford.
Okay.
But that's a discussion we can have later. We're not at that point yet. We don't have funding for it, but we'll hopefully get there. The other thing we've done, I think that's pretty exciting, is we've actually instrumented in-lake and downstream at Stony Brook. We've got real-time data collection. So at any time during the process of drawdown, and this is the first time this has ever been done in the state, you can actually go on, the commission, anyone, any citizen can go online and see the lake level. You can see how much we've dropped down in the last week or month or whatever frame of reference you want to use. You can see what the flow rate is in Stony Brook at the outlet channel to see how close we are to either exceeding the maximum flow during the drawdown period or going too low during the refill period, so that we can do a better job. We know when we can or need to adjust the sluice gates or the stop logs. So I think DEP is pretty excited about it. We're pretty excited about just being able to look at the forecast, seeing that there's a nor'easter coming up. Maybe we need to pull the stop log to allow a little more capacity or whatever. So and it's totally transparent, so that you guys can just if you're curious, you can look at it and say, hey, you've been below that low level threshold for 3 days now, maybe you need to do something. So that's good news, and we're going to continue. We're committed to continuing to do that. So we're before you again with pretty much exactly the same application as before, just with those additional bits of information in front of us. And
what kind of records have you kept to demonstrate that it's been working?
So what we've been doing for the years that we've been able to do it is, manually getting out there and measuring the water level. We now understand how water level in the channel relates to an actual stream flow volume or rate in the downstream channel. But by our permit, that was a requirement, and most drawdowns have that same requirement. Every 48 hours, measuring the lake level. We did it in lake, and we did it at where Beaver Brook comes in to the lake. So,
but I mean, less about whether the drawdown's working, but whether the drawdown's working for reduction of the aquatic plants. Is there any evidence you can show that it's actually been effective?
Yes, I mean that's going out and doing annual vegetation survey as part of our conditions.
And you see, how much evidence is there that it works against what plants too?
I think it's works is a little bit of a vague term here. I mean, somebody's perception of whether you're getting a 17% reduction in non-native plants or 50%. I think it varies a lot from year to year. It varies a lot based on, did we get a good hard freeze during that drawdown period? Was it really wet, and did we only get a foot of drawdown? And, when you're talking about a foot vertical, in some places that doesn't mean very much horizontal drawdown exposure. So the reality is it varies quite a bit from year to year. We've had some years where I think especially those folks in the shallow coves will tell you that, it was a good year and it helped a lot through the growing season. Maybe by late in the summer, things have kind of crept back in, but nobody has any expectation that this is going to be, a magical cure. It's just one of those things that takes the edge off and makes it a little more manageable and pushes the worst effects of the growth period out maybe to the later part of the summer.
Didn't you have a wheat harvest to do some of that too at one point?
That's not us. So the Mattawanakee Homeowners Association, typically in most years they hire, I think it used to be Aquatic Control, now it's a company called Solitude, and they come in and they just selectively might, do a hydro rake. It's like a York rake with on a barge. So it goes in and grabs the plants nearest the surface and puts them on a harvester and takes them out. That's done under a different permit. It's not Friends of Forge Pond. So individual homeowners just pay for it by frontage, 100 feet here, 100 feet there.
It seems to me, listening to you, that you almost have to work with the Westford Conservation Commission in order to make this thing work. As far as taking the fill that's accumulated in front of the gates.
Well, yeah, that's exactly right, and that's our intention. But nothing happens for free. So now that we only recently got that study done, it was in our hands, I think, in late August. So now that we've got that, that's sort of top of the list, and we want to get this permit in hand so that we can continue, in the coming years to do drawdown as we also pursue that.
By doing the drawdown too, it also gives people a chance to shore up their retaining walls and stuff.
Right.
I believe that's
Right.
something we've allowed in the past. Maintenance.
So is it mainly milfoil? Is that your main problem?
It's Eurasian milfoil, it's variable milfoil, it's fanwort, which is Cabamba caroliniana. Those are the main ones that,
Yeah.
they're ropey and they sort of
Yeah.
grow through in a broader expanse of the
Yeah.
littoral zone. We've got two other plants that aren't as big of a deal in terms of volume, but they're still a concern. We've
Yeah.
been keeping an eye on water chestnut, which showed up again this year. It's just one of those plants that you just every year you got to keep an eye on, and just we're hand harvesting it, and it's been effective. It's because it's an annual. You can control it if you stay on top of it.
Yeah.
If you let it go too far, it can get unmanageable.
So as part of the drawdown, do you go in and pull some of this stuff out too?
Some people.
Do you have that ability?
It depends on where you are. I mean, where I live, it wouldn't make much of a difference. I don't get that much exposure. For people in a really shallow area, you might be able to go in and, rake up a little bit of debris, or that sort of depends on where you live.
Yeah.
And I can't speak for everyone. I don't know what all the homeowners in the lake do.
Is it, when you do accumulate that stuff, you dispose of it off-site someplace? So you're
Just
not.
let it dry somewhere. And then
Yeah, it makes good compost.
you have to let it dry.
At my house, we put it in the compost pile. Probably cover that conference table about a foot deep.
But you've seen some areas where it's been in the wetlands too.
Well, it's a never-ending battle.
Hmm.
That's for sure.
So, I don't know if you saw DEP comments?
I did, yeah. So there's a little bit of a logistical dance here because the lake is in two towns, as you know. Westford's hearing is next week, and to make things even a little more confusing, it's split between two DEP regions. So you have two different DEP reviewers with two different towns. So between now and when we last were before you, there was a subtle change in the Wetlands Protection Act regulations as it relates to ecological restoration projects. And there used to be a separate little home for drawdown. Now it's kind of lumped in with a bunch of other ecological restoration projects. So to me, it was a little bit, so with the way it works now is if you've got an ecological restoration limited project, you've got to fill out this Appendix A, which for our project is 100% exactly the same information that you already have in front of you with the notice of intent. There's absolutely nothing new. And then there's this additional step of just filing in the MEPA monitor, which isn't a big deal, and we've done that.
You've done it for this project
Yes.
already? Okay.
Yes, it's in, it'll be published in the next
Okay.
monitor. So The only thing that's a logistical little stumbling block here is in order to submit Appendix A, which prior to submitting the notice of intent to your commission, I spoke to Leldon Langley, who's the section chief for wetlands, and told him there was this gray area that is now sitting in the law where specifically for drawdown, the DEP guidance for aquatic vegetation control, which includes drawdown, completely drives the bus. All of the guidance from Mass Fish and Wildlife and DEP is right in there. It tells you when you have to start, time of year, what the flow rates are based on the size of the watershed, all the things that are there for habitat, fisheries, wildlife protection. So you really can't vary from any of that. It's written in DEP's guidance document. So this idea that there's something additional to be gained by filing Appendix A, he agreed that really wasn't necessary. So it's not a requirement based on Leldon Langley's interpretation that the applicant is not required to request a limited project review. So based on that conversation with him, we decided that we wouldn't, and we would just follow the DEP and Mass Wildlife guidance and be done with it. So what I found out today was that the reviewer from Mass DEP Central Region sort of caught this, and she wasn't aware of this nuance, and she said, well, I just need you to fill out Appendix A just so I can check the box. And I told her about my conversation with Leldon Langley, and she still just needed the box checked. So what happens there is, in order to check that box, I need to have a review letter from Natural Heritage, which I've got an email here from the staff of Misty Ann Merrill, who's the reviewer. Her staff assistant said, basically paraphrasing, Misty Ann planned to have the review for you by today. Unfortunately, she was sick and wasn't able to get to it. So what I'm hoping is that, like the last time we came before you, you could simply condition that anything that comes out of the Westford hearing would be just added on as an addendum to your conditions. Whichever of the two towns has the more stringent conditions is the ones we have to follow anyway, so it's...
Well, that's Westford.
But yeah, well, in the past, yes. Because
Their order conditions was like, I don't know, 20 or 30 pages long last time around.
Well, and the reason for that
They
is...
rewrote everything, I think.
Right, and their reasoning was that, I think about 12 years ago, along Software Pond, or no, Lake Nebnasset came in to do drawdown, and it was the first time they'd ever seen it, and they wrote them this 23-page order of conditions, and they felt like they couldn't do anything different for consistency purposes. And we had a long discussion about that, and Friends of Forge Pond did not come out on the good side of that discussion, but nonetheless, I expect that it's not going to be much different. So whatever, like I said, whatever is the more stringent will be the ones that we'll follow. And we're not looking to get away with anything here. We just want to do whatever you guys agree is reasonable. So if you're able and willing to close the hearing tonight,
So-
put that as a special condition.
Leldon Langley, or you think it's okay to close without the MIPA public notice having happened?
Yes, and so the DEP reviewer's name is Judy Schmidt.
Yeah.
She specifically told me that it was okay to quote her, saying that would be all right. She even said she had a nighttime phone number that you would be free to call if you had any questions about it.
Yeah.
But she was 100% behind that being an after-the-fact submittal, even with the hearing closed tonight.
All right. So I will make a motion.
So,
Oh.
let me just double check. So,
Wait, if we don't have heard, if we haven't heard from Natural Heritage, then what?
so
So
there's
by the time the Westford
something
hearing-
floating around.
Yeah, there's no rare and endangered species habitat in the town of Littleton. It's only in Westford, over by where Beaver Brook enters the lake. It just barely clips the lake.
Okay.
So there's no way that hearing in Westford is going to go through until they've gotten their letter, which presumably will be tomorrow or the next day.
I see, but it doesn't affect the Littleton side.
Correct.
Okay.
And DEP has also said that's really that's within your purview to decide to just defer to their hearing process on that.
Okay.
It
So
did require Fort Pond when they came in to do the public notice and wait for the public notice for the MIPA thing.
Say that again?
For Fort Pond, who came in, was it last year?
Forge Pond.
No, Fort Pond, when Fort Pond came in the last year or
Yeah.
two, and they had to do the Appendix A and the MIPA notification, you did want that all done before you issued the order conditions.
Hmm.
So all the ones that are gonna start coming through are gonna have to deal with this now.
But the benefit we have here is that there is a second hearing process.
Yeah, that's what I was
And
warning,
what
there's gonna be another hearing.
Yeah, there's no way we can slip through the cracks.
In a
of
different
that.
town. So, yeah.
in a different town. But
They could have a whole totally different opinion of the whole thing too.
Well, like I said, Judy Schmidt did say if you had any questions, you were welcome to call her at her nighttime number, and that issue related to the MIPA notice, she specifically said was one that she was comfortable having come in after the fact.
What's your advice, Amy?
I mean, it seems fine, but saying there's a lot of bits and pieces. It's a lot of moving parts with two different
Understood.
towns involved,
Yeah.
obviously. Now, the tiny risk of closing tonight for you is that Westford adds some condition that would mean you'd have to come back here and reopen, as opposed to letting this sit until they're done.
I'm not sure if I follow, I'm sorry.
If Westford imposes a condition, which means that does something where you'd need to come back in front of these guys for something,
Well, the way I envision
which I
it-
can't see because this is kind of standard.
Yeah, so maybe I'm misunderstanding. I mean,
If you close tonight, you can't make any changes.
Well, but what if one of your special conditions was that all conditions from the town of Westford be adopted as an addendum? Or, I mean, just sort of right, because and I believe that's how it was written last time. So that the tiger wasn't chasing its tail from one town to the next. It was just sort of written in that, does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I would probably do that. I'd certainly attach the Fish and Wildlife letter we have. We don't have the Natural Heritage letter yet.
what's the, if we waited for the Westford hearing, it'd just be the delay in coming back here again?
Well, do you have a hearing before November 1st when we need to start the drawdown?
No.
That's your.
That's the limiting factor then, yeah.
And when's your hearing with Westford?
The 22nd, next week.
Next week.
No, one concern I have is that we don't know yet the result of the dredging, non-dredging aspect. So we don't know exactly how far it will draw down.
Well,
Because
at most, we'd get another 1.5 feet based on the engineering evaluation.
So 1.5 feet beyond 3.5, you said was the most drew down before?
Right. That's
So
the
it'd be
most we've ever achieved.
4.5,
But
5.
you could still condition, I mean, if, right now, what we've requested, I believe, is a maximum of, gosh, I should know this off the top of my head.
I don't see any maximum.
4.9.
Yeah, 4.9 feet is the maximum we're asking for.
Where is that?
It's on Appendix B, the project description.
Oh. It doesn't say anything about that in the Fisheries and Wildlife.
So, Section B of Exhibit B on page 1. The proposed target drawdown level will be a maximum of 1.5 meters, which is 4.9 feet.
And what's the maximum in terms of general footage of the drawdown that you're allowed to have?
Well, in the
Or does
past,
it vary by pond? Or,
you mean statewide?
yeah.
Oh, yeah, it varies a lot. I mean, there are some deep drawdowns in Berkshire County which are going down as far as 8 feet vertical. There are some it's more common to see the limitation just be based on the outlet structure. So it's typically anywhere from 3 feet upwards to 8 feet. The deeper drawdowns are more rare, though.
Is there a maximum square footage of exposed shore that is allowed, or
No,
what?
so when Fisheries and Wildlife does their review, and that was the letter that you got, they look at the bathymetry of the lake to make sure that there's sufficient deep water refuge for
Okay.
fish. So that's their job, to make sure that those resources are protected.
Because I didn't see any maximum
Yep, there's a
drawdown in
figure-
their letter,
In the letter from,
Fish and Wildlife.
no, and I think that's based on their review. So basically, all the areas in white are the areas that provide deep water refuge.
Okay.
And so, this is way above and beyond, I think, what they would consider a critical threshold for deep water refuge.
Okay, so the amount of drawdown that you're talking about needs to have the area in white remain water.
Actually, it's
The
less
maximum is
than
the
that.
green?
So the maximum is the green. This orange band shows the maximum extent of what we were previously authorized to do. So
Okay.
we're not even bothering to go with it because we know it's not technically, we're never going to achieve that. So we just kept it, this conservative green zone as being the maximum. And we probably won't ever even get out that far either, to be honest.
And they said that that was fine, that if it was drawn down that much, that there would be sufficient refuge for, okay.
Is this an annual permit that we issue?
Uh,
It's every year you come in here?
No,
I think
no,
it's just
it's been
3
authorized for
years?
3 years.
Every 3 years.
It's good for 3 years, so you
Yeah,
could
yeah.
do it.
You could do it
Every
next
3
2
years.
years, right?
Yeah, that's at your discretion whether or not to extend it or not.
Now this will
You
be a
know,
live permit, you can
would
go
it
back in
help
for an
Cal-
extension rather than
Correct.
new.
Yep.
because they would like to go more than what they've done in the past. If they just kind of came in and have an informal discussion in the spring as to what it worked and how it worked.
I think that'd be helpful. It would help us, so at least we would know.
Yeah.
Okay. But issue it for 3 years, just so as we're
Yeah.
kind of kept in touch with what's
I think that's a
actually.
good, I think that's a good idea if we could put a condition on.
To
Just come in.
submit a monitoring report or
Yeah.
a
Yeah,
summary
we've-
report or
We've had to
something?
do that anyway in the past, and now in the
Yeah.
years when we have only gotten down a foot and then we canceled it, we never submitted a report because it wasn't a true drawdown, but in the years when we've done it, achieved a drawdown, that's a requirement of the permit, at
I mean,
least.
I would.
Or at least in
submit
a report saying you couldn't do it this year, so.
Yeah,
Right, spend a report and maybe just come in and give us 10 minutes or something.
that sounds reasonable to me.
That would be helpful.
Is there any kind of time frame you make sense to put on that? Submit a summary report by August 1st, or what's your?
Yeah, I mean, the drawdown, I mean, by the time we've got the lake level back up by, early spring, by April 1st anyway. So one of the nice things about having the automated monitoring equipment is that all the data is right there. So you just basically print out a bunch of charts and graphs and it's right there for the viewing.
So does August 1st give you time to pull stuff together?
Sure.
You'll make motion.
Oh, I'm sorry, just one more. I'm sorry. So the Appendix A, you're going to submit that before November 1st? To,
Yeah, the second that I get in Misty Ann Merrill's review letter from Natural Heritage, that's the missing link to that form being.
Okay.
I've
So
actually
I
got
just-
it right here in front of me, and the only thing that's missing is her
right.
her response letter.
Okay, I'm just putting in dates in the conditions, so.
Okay, I mean, she said, her assistant said,
Yeah.
with her being out sick, she expected by end of this week at the latest.
Okay, all right. Sorry.
So I will go ahead and make a motion that the commission issue an order of conditions for the Forge Pond Lake Drawdown DEP file number 204-8 blank blank
7-2.
72. And to further include any conditions imposed by the Westford Conservation Commission into our order of conditions, and to include a monitoring report submitted by August 1st of 2019.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I actually had 5 conditions, but I think we got them.
I think we're good.
Thank you.
You pulled in this letter. Has to be done in accordance with.
Well, Natural Heritage approves the Appendix A submitted before November 1st. The meeting notification happens before November 1st.
But this has a list of,
Right, that's not really,
this.
yeah, that doesn't really, I was going to reference this letter.
Okay.
I wasn't going to read, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
It would
That's what I mean.
No, just
be
Westford.
kind of nice to have a report from Westford as to what they added to the order conditions. Just
Yeah, I'll call Carol and say, yeah.
It's either left out of like the public beach.
public hearing notice of intent, Patriot Beverage LLC and Injection Mold Enterprise LLC. U 44-20, Mass DEP file number 204-8.
71.
71, reconstruction of an existing industrial siding and construct 325 feet of new siding within the existing parking lot.
We received some questions during the site walk, I believe. So we prepared a supplemental package that addresses some of your questions. Just turn those over and you can introduce the project.
So this is the Patriot Beverages Injection Molding Enterprises Railroad Siding Rehabilitation Extension Project. So if you remember, we had an informational session a few weeks ago. That was followed by a site walk on October 3rd. And then this is the opening of the hearing for the project. So, as Chris said, there were some questions that came up during the site walk that we had a chance to address. This plan here is a version of the permit plan that we submitted previously, an updated version that addresses some of those comments. So the first request we had was to add some identification for the existing drainage on the site, just to add colored lines basically indicating where each of the existing drain lines goes, where the discharge point is. Since some of the drain lines discharge to the lagoon on the west side of the property, which is over here, and some of the other drains on the site discharge to the wastewater treatment plant down here. So the wastewater treatment plant lines are shown in green here, and the blue indicates the drains that discharge to the lagoon there.
And for the sake of the record, maybe we should step back a bit and just state what the project is, since the informational meeting was prior to the hearing opening. But basically, there's existing siding that runs alongside of the building that we're extending into an area of the property that is now paved. So we're removing that pavement and replacing it with ballast. And there is a system that transfers the plastic pellets from rail cars into the building using a pipe manifold system that hooks up to the rail cars and pipes the pellets through to the building. I know in the hearing when we discussed the project last time, there were some concerns expressed about spillage of the plastic pellets, making sure that they did not travel through the closed drainage network and into the lagoon and then out to the wetlands. So we feel like we've incorporated pieces of the project that address that concern.
Is this the pipe now, or is that something that's mobile and comes
This
out
is a connection pipe from the under drain system that is not connected to the system that the pipe manifold is. So right now the pipe manifold is an above ground system that sits along this pavement, and we've recessed the pavement that surrounds that manifold and installed a curb along that edge so that anything that in that pipe manifold area will land on that pavement that is recessed, captured on the curb, and then that runs into this the proposed dry well containment structure. So it's just a dry well that's offline from the closed drainage network that will infiltrate runoff into the ground on a normal basis, and it's only collecting this small area of less than 2,000 square feet. And if there is a spillage, it would remain in that dry well, and it can be vacuumed out of that dry well.
And the pellets, are there fines that might go into the water that then would infiltrate? Or is it, I mean, is there any powdery type of residue that comes with those pellets?
That's when the pellets are put into the rail car. There's a cyclone system that filters it before it goes in, so most of the fines are taken out before it even gets into the rail car.
Okay.
When we take it out of the rail car, there's a vacuum pump that draws it from the rail car through another cyclone, and then it comes down and by pressure pump, it's pumped into the silos where then we would use it inside the building. The risk is that if there was a poor connection or a hose break or something during that offloading of the pellets, that we'd get pellets on the ground. So primarily, they're probably about the size of a number 6 birdshot. That's about the size of the actual pellets. They are heavier than water, so they do sink if they get into the water at all. So the design of the spillage containment system is to create a trough in that area of the offload that would empty into this basin, which would have a fine silt screen protecting the outside of it. So there's very little risk that anything
Okay, that's what I was
small
wondering.
would get into the waterway.
So this is just a detail of the structure here. So it's a typical dry well, concrete structure that's wrapped in an envelope of crushed stone. And on outside that is filter fabric, which filters out any fines.
The pellets are more or less the equivalent of urea and a fertilizer.
A what?
Urea and fertilizer, the pellets are just a small, it's what I use.
They're about one millimeter, is that right?
Yeah, they're basically about 1 millimeter.
Pellets are recycled plastic, and that they're are they heated to form the pellet? Is the plastic heated to form the pellet?
Well, we heat it to mold with it, but it
How do you
stays.
get how do you get the recycled plastic into a pellet?
Oh, it has to be ground and reheated, and then
Reheated,
it's run through an
formed, and then
extruder,
formed
formed
into
through
a-
a die
Gotcha.
to get back into a pellet. So this is not, this is virgin plastic, it's not recycled.
Oh, this is virgin plastic.
Yes, it's virgin plastic coming right from the refinery that makes it, that comes to us. So
For some reason I
that's,
thought it was recycled.
well, recycled would probably come through another venue, which would either be via bulk truck or in Gaylord boxes with bags in it. The recyclers don't usually deal in rail cars. It's just a smaller volume process for them.
Gotcha.
There are some technologies out there now looking at taking larger quantities of recycled plastic, especially with all the concern over plastic in the ocean and other areas around the world, and taking those larger volumes and creating a recycled material that would be the equivalent of the virgin material that you get from the refinery. But still, that's
They
a
were
ways
talking
off.
about somebody making shoes out of that, recycled plastic, it was on the
Yes.
talk show this morning.
Yeah, so if you're looking at anything made with fabric that has polyester fabric in it, a lot of that fiber content is recycled PET plastic.
And I think the town of Harvard was putting down some undercoating or something on the roads, and then they were putting crushed stone on top of it, rolling, so it was almost sealed, sealed the road. Made it look like a paving job. That's what it looks like. So,
Well, could you go over more about this drainage here to the, this isn't a lagoon, is it? It looks like it's a pond. Or is
Well,
that?
it's a
is that-
retention, it's a retention pond.
retention.
Oh, okay.
It's a constructed.
So all of
Okay,
the,
wetland. Because
Constructed
it has a
wetland.
wetland boundary on it and everything.
Yeah.
Correct,
you
yeah.
have no
Okay.
idea
It's
what
a-
that was before.
oh, and that's years ago, that's long before,
Yes,
it used to
but
be
I-
New England Apple products and.
Yes. There were floating mats in it.
So there are two different
It's not that
networks
bad now.
on
Apple
site.
skin and apple cores and.
Whatever.
Wait, he's going over.
So the blue line represents the network, the pipe network that gets to that pond. The green network is the network that gets to the treatment plant on the facility.
Right.
So that gets treated and then gets piped across to the same metering valve that takes the flow from the pond. and
How
then they
come
go
you don't
across.
put it all through the treatment plant, just as a
Because the treatment plant is designed for the size of, for all the facilities that are happening inside of the treatment plant. So you wouldn't want to run anything like a rainstorm event just through the treatment plant. That would exceed the capacity of the plant.
Yeah,
So
basically
this is
what's in
for
the blue
rain.
line is rainwater runoff from the roof drains and just the parking lot. And a lot of it does actually end up in the treatment plant, because where the green lines are, there's actually pitches in the parking lot that bring the drainage to those locations. But those were put in locations in the parking lot that were high risk for spills from like tanker trucks and things like that when they were bringing juices and concentrates and stuff into the building. The other drains are, like I said, from rooftop drains built and other flatter areas in the parking lot that aren't at risk of having any of those other spillages.
Okay.
Have you considered the roof over the cars at all?
It's very expensive. It's been considered, but it's a,
No,
it's a
but I mean,
very
just be a
large
way of-
construction cost.
Yeah.
I think I saw something in there, weren't you doing something to help block the wind or something?
Well, for the hose connections, we're
Yeah.
looking at a fabricated cone or funnel that would go onto the connection of the rail car first before attaching the hose, so that attachment point itself would be protected from the wind.
Because there was quite a, when the trains went by, there was quite a vacuum that you could feel, or wind.
Yeah, they move a lot of air. I mean, it's a big mass going by at a high rate of speed, so they do move quite a bit of air when they go by.
Would it pay to have some sort, I don't know if it's a silt fence, but some sort of a fence that would be along the tracks there just to help reduce the,
Yeah, I'm not sure how the MBTA would view that, having anything in between, because they have their fouling distances
Yeah.
in the tracks, so that's really it would be their call, because it's all their property at that point.
Typically, it's hard for them to put in a fence in between two active tracks, just because the equipment that they use to surface and maintain the line and the ballast, those have arms that come out that need to reach across. So that's why you don't typically see fences in between tracks, which would essentially be the case.
other than, I think there's a siding down there, it's got a chain link fence down where Lewis Page was, but I'm not sure which side of the track, whether it's the railroad side or the parking lot side, which is on Taylor Street.
Yeah,
Building
that-
it's
I
up for sale.
remember when that, yeah, I remember that when that was Lewis Page, and I believe the chain link fence was on the parking lot side.
But that, something like that substantial with a silt fence along the inside of, or the out, would help cut down the breeze as far as, it's just something simple.
No, and I agree. I think the call would be by the MBTA whether or not they would allow something like that between the tracks.
They'd probably prefer the collar that you described,
Yeah.
something that's, could be attached as needed to
Yeah.
fulfill the same purpose effectively.
Right. And it would have to be, have to be moved from connection to connection point every time we move the hose for the different sections of the hopper car would be moved with it.
Now, do you move the cars, or do you just,
No, that's all done by Pan Am Railways. So what we would do is the actual manifold system incorporates 4 cars. So whenever they're parked in place, we would just empty from one end to the other, start at the farthest point and keep working our way through the cars till they're all empty, and then Pan Am would remove them.
do you have any idea how long the cars, one particular batch of cars would sit there?
Probably not more than 3 or 4 days.
And
Once
you'd
we're
bring
in
in
full
another
production.
batch, or
I'm sorry?
you'd bring in another batch?
Yes,
or would
they
you-
would take those 4 out and bring more in.
You're using a lot of plastic if you're doing it at least once a week, turning it over.
Yes.
So you're making plastic bottles, right?
We're making the preforms for the plastic bottles. So we make the preform, and they go off to the filling and the blow molding and filling facilities. CPF, New England Hot Fill. We have another location out in New York.
So wasn't there another issue with being within the 50?
We have removed all work from the 50-foot buffer.
Oh,
It was-
great.
There was a corner there that was overlapping.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, you weren't at the site walk where we marked it out.
Oh.
Basically, what we've shown is we pulled all the proposed work back
Great.
out of the 50-foot buffer, which we didn't think we were initially going to be able to do, but through some creativity, we were able to get out of that.
That's great.
Is
That
there a
resource.
well that's in the way of the old, that's on the side of the building there that you would be closing out or something?
No, the well is at the front end of the property, at the east end of the property, closest to King Street. There's a well there that is inactive, and that would have, it's already within or outside of the boundary of the existing siding, so we'd have no impact on that whatsoever.
But it seems to me, if you look down the tracks where it was supposed to go, there was what, some sort of building structure or something that was gonna?
Yes, there's a small
Yeah.
shed that has to be demolished in order to extend the track down, so.
So you got any idea when the railroad's gonna take it up and do their project?
Well, that's all dependent on us getting sign off on the proposals that we have here for the drainage and everything, and then we can submit our plans out for bid for construction.
Anybody else got any more questions?
I'd like to make a motion to issue an order of conditions for Patriot Beverages LLC, Injection Molding Enterprises, U44-20-0, Mass DEP 204871.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Who was gonna want the original to get recorded down the registry of deeds? I usually would send it to the owner, but I don't know if somebody else is gonna do the recording, or...
I think we're gonna do that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's, yeah,
Right. State.
part of the project.
I think Addie mentioned that.
Yeah.
So send it to
HNTV.
Ian, Addie...
Let's send it to Addie, please. Sorry.
Sorry, there's a lot of
It's a team effort.
Everybody else get copies anyway, but...
Wish you well. Keep moving along with it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Good luck.
Would you like to keep the large size package?
Sure, why not?
Yes.
Really is. But the railroad's been busy building siding.
Yes, they,
Cement company put one in.
they approved
Okay, good.
the IRAP proposals this year. They
Yes.
approved at least six different siding projects in the
Wow.
state.
Wow.
Yeah, so things are booming.
That's good news.
This is good.
Well, it's helpful that you already have a siding there anyway to begin something, the switching and all that. They
Yeah,
have now.
Right, and we'll be able to use the existing switch, they're just gonna put it back together and then improve the signaling on it, and then
Good.
down with some new rails.
Okay, enforcement order 10 Fort Pond, Acton, Littleton. You getting in that?
Yeah, so the owner, Adam Hoffman, is here, so I issued the enforcement order, if you remember, for the sort of gazebo and sitting area, I'm not sure what you call them, over on Fort Pond. So I guess you can just...
Oh, so there's a small screen-in gazebo. It's about 125 feet from the edge of the pond, and it required 3 inches of just crushed stone to support it and be level. And in doing that, there was one part to the right of it. There's a little incline, and the ground was very soft because this was about 6 weeks ago when we had all those like flash thunderstorms. And so it created, from the equipment they brought up to do that, it created some erosion, and it crossed over to just a dirt and gravel road. And then there's the pond, and some of the dirt started creating some erosion, the thunderstorms, and so it was starting to come down by the pond. And so I reached out to a landscaper. We got a proposal to put a really thick matting down. Underneath that, it's a white Dutch clover, control the erosion as well. And then we're also going to the sand and gravel road, put all the gravel, same as what's there. And then it washed away some of the, when you get from the road to the pond, It's all like natural material. It's like a really fine mulch. And so some of that got washed down, and so we're just gonna replace that with the same natural material. And so I got a proposal from a landscaper, and I shared that with Amy just to make sure that was appropriate and that was what she was looking for, the commission was looking for. And so here it is.
I guess I don't know how close that work was to the pond. Is there any map that shows the proximity of that?
It said the gazebo was 125 feet from.
I didn't even see any gazebo there. It was just.
It's on
There's
the
the second
second
page.
page, yeah.
Oh, I got it through.
So there's a road called, just if you're not familiar with the area, there's a road called Boathouse Way. And I guess that's been there forever. I don't know, I think it's a common way, and I'm not sure who owns, controls it. We pay there's a sub-association on that side, about 15 homeowners, and we all pay an annual fee, and they just maintain it. And the utilities have access to it as well. There's utilities all along in some of the cabins. We don't have them, but there are some cabins there, and they have electricity and such. So we're not, that road is about 100 feet from the pond, and 100 feet in, you're really not supposed to do anything. And this is on the other side of that road. There was actually, so there was, many years ago, there was a cabin there, and it burned down, and so that area was there, was just a little overgrown, and so we just split the bunds. For a couple of years, we've been there now, and get pretty nasty mosquitoes, and I don't get them that much in my life, just these wells. So, now I can enjoy the sunset, so.
So the area where the picnic table is, there's got a little retaining wall and gravel placed on that?
Yeah, there's no,
Was that new, or is that,
no,
the gravel looked new?
No, that was there, and we just cleaned that up, and I checked that, and there's no erosion or anything there.
Oh.
Just a little one.
Yeah, because I thought the enforcement order was on this gravel area, but it's not.
I think,
Is it
yeah,
on the
there's nothing
gazebo?
going on there, it's the
Well,
erosion.
it was hard to tell what was in the buffer zone and what wasn't from to Boathouse, which is where I went to look, some
Right.
trees are being cut down. And it looked like there's new gravel and retaining wall there in
Right,
the
right.
top picture.
Yeah.
A lot of that also got when they were parking their trucks there, so everything was just so muddy that everything just got moved around. It was like, you need boots to walk there.
So you that may not be new, but you put in more gravel because it got soft or something?
Yeah, because when you were parking there, it's really soft area, so wherever you park your car, you tend to sink a little, and so we were sinking in the mud and just put some gravel just to.
Gravel or crushed stone?
Crushed stone, I'm sorry.
Is it the same thing?
I gotta run.
Is it the same thing?
No.
Oh.
Yeah, the
Crushed
term I heard
stone,
is crushed
gravel
stone.
is crushed
Mail
stone.
must be delivered, huh?
No,
I'm not sure.
no, gravel is not crushed stone.
I think,
Isn't that how you make gravel? Do you crush the stone?
so I think with crushed stone, if you get good drainage, I'm not sure what, crushed gravel, I don't know the stone, it's crushed gravel.
Precious gravel. That's what they call it.
I don't know the difference, but I trust you.
But this looks like crushed stone. I mean, there's two forms of crushed stone. And then there's the cement recycled crushed stuff too. But this is,
Yeah, I don't think it looks like cement, it's the gray stuff, but,
this is just probably, it's kind of multi-edged stone, whereas sometimes they use a round stone that's about the same size too.
So this is the same as that area.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Looking at the gazebo, which is this way. I mean, if you look at this, you're standing here looking this way.
You have to get him to explain it to you.
so if I'm standing at the gazebo, I'd be up on a hill on this side of the road.
Like
area.
here, looking this way, or that
The
way?
gazebo's up here.
Oh, up here.
Uphill.
Yeah,
And you can see the
right,
ponds
right,
down there.
across the road up the hill.
Oh, and the pond's down there. I didn't see. I don't know. I don't have the perspective of how close this is to the pond.
Oh,
picture of
that's
that?
probably, I don't know,
No, there's no picture of that.
at least, it's gotta be at least 50 feet.
There's the pond. Is this
And then it
just
also
showing
goes down, so.
runoff pathway? So this is the fines that are going into the pond.
No, I don't think that's going in, there's nothing over here that's going into the pond. The only thing that's over here,
Yeah,
so I think
runs
this
down
photo.
from the picnic table gravel and kind of.
And you know what this might
through
be
the
too?
area
There's like
and drops
some friends gave us one of those little, just wrought iron fire pit things.
Right.
And it fills with water, and so I think they dumped it too, and it might be that. But because over here, it might be one of the other photos we have. Yeah, so here you can see it better. This is coming from actually up across the road up the hill.
So that
And,
is
and the
going
pic,
to the
and
pond.
this area,
I mean, I'm a very visual person. I need like a
this other
diagram.
photo
This-
is showing me, yeah, this area here,
Yeah, this is
is
going,
actually
the pond, this is
like
going down to the
over
pond.
here.
That's going to the
This is
pond.
going to the pond.
Yeah, this is going down the pond, but it doesn't go into the pond. And
It
a
goes
lot
into
of
the
this
pond.
is like, I also checked too, because, so the whole thing, it's all, from the water, the whole thing just slopes all the way up to Sarriania Way. That's just how it is, big hill. And so, we got that picnic table benches, and you're sitting like this, and my in-laws fell, and so some friends came and they tried to put, I just put some rocks there. They tried to put sand there, I'm like, no.
Does it need to be burned or, I don't know.
So, I didn't walk around and measure anything, so I'm not sure if this is in the 50-foot. I wasn't clear what's new, what's old of the picnic area, not so much the screen porch piece of it.
So is it
Well,
the,
the picnic area we didn't touch. We just, that's natural slope and everything. We didn't
So the
do any
retaining wall
construction
was
there.
always there?
Yeah, the retaining wall was there. We just, when we bought the property, we just cleaned all that out. There was an old, we don't have a dock. We don't want one, we don't have
Yeah.
a boat. There was an old wooden dock that was there, and we just did it. So we took that away, cleaned out the area. So that, there's no erosion there. That looks pretty good. That top, it's all soft material, so we put that crushed gravel down, just because that was really.
so the issue is the erosion leaching into the pond, correct? That's the issue at hand.
Yeah,
That's
and,
what's-
they had the equipment out there fairly recently. There was obviously a lot of heavy rainstorms.
Right.
Which kind of got things going. I
So-
wasn't sure if this stuff was new or not. It sounds like what's been going on around the picnic area is restoration of a pre-existing condition, basically.
So that situation's been rectified as far as the,
I asked, Adam sent this whole thing to me. I said, well, hold off on doing the whole thing, maybe do some little temporary stuff, because I knew there was rain coming on Saturday or something, and just make sure that this that I passed around is
yeah.
what you think it needs, or if you think you want to go out and take a look at it, or whatever.
Does it need, in that spot where it looks like the water, does it need a series of check dams or something just to trap? I mean, I don't know. Or is it-
I don't know. I didn't take a hard look at it.
There's no, there's nothing else on that road. Whenever that dirt road boathouse way got put in, however many, I don't know, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, when they did that, that's what created that little hill, and then all that stuff behind it, really gazebo's and all that, so. It's just so soft over the years. The whole thing is soft, even when you rake, we raked our little area where we have the picnic table, and when you rake it, it's just the whole ground is soft. There's like tons of chipmunk holes in there.
Yeah, there's no understory in any of these areas. It's a lot of pine.
Yeah, and you keep it, it's this, the nice part about it, it's really peaceful, quiet, it's this whole rustic feel. So people aren't, you don't see any of these new elaborate cottages or anything like that. And I don't even think you're allowed to anyway. But it's just a really nice, beautiful, quiet spot, and we want to keep it that way.
Well, I guess I would need, I mean, this says that you're gonna put an erosion control blanket on the hill. By the way, the English is just atrocious.
So I took it right from my landscaper. They're the sweetest,
But you
nicest
get the
guys.
idea.
You get the general idea.
And they always do what they say they're gonna do, and I've known them for years, so I'm like, okay.
So the blanket will be installed around the gazebo, and then it says under the blanket,
Yeah,
they'll
so I think
install.
what they're trying to say is
undercloth.
you plant the seed and then the erosion control blanket, right? Because otherwise seed on top of that, it just gets blown away, I guess, so. I think
Okay,
it's,
so the seeds will grow up through the erosion control blanket?
yeah, I had a former house in Acton where we had a big slope like that, and we tried to seed it with grass, and you can't blow it anything. We wound up doing the same thing and using, that's when clover was recommended to us, and.
No, I like the idea of clover, I just didn't understand that sequence.
Yeah, so it's
because-
like a mesh,
Yeah.
and so.
Like a jute netting or something?
Yeah, so you seed first, then you put this mesh down, and it's probably rateable, and, well, actually, I don't know if.
See, this says around the gazebo, that's what, I'm not connecting all the dots here,
I
like,
think what he's saying is, so it's not, so the gazebo itself is on a level thing. So the gazebo is level, and then there's this slope, and then the dirt and gravel road. And it's this slope, just one piece of the slope, where they brought the equipment up to put the crushed gravel, and they were putting the gazebo on. That's what created, during the rainstorms, that's what started eroding a little bit and creating this little path down towards the pond.
oh, I thought it was from this gravelly area.
No, that's all fine, no.
Oh,
It's
okay.
just that.
I think
because
some of it
that's
is
the
coming
only
from the
part-
gravelly area.
Okay.
Yeah, I took a look at it, well, you can take a look at it. So anyway, so
It's
instead
probably
of.
changing too.
So just to be safe, instead of the proposal as well, let's, it'd be silly just to put erosion control for that one little path, let's just do the whole thing and make sure it never happens, so. It might be overkill, but I'm willing to,
So basically, since you put the gazebo there, you created the erosion problem. Because
No,
of the
it's not
runoff
the
from
gazebo.
building.
It's not the gazebo, it's the erosion control happened, so just by walking up there, and sitting up there, you start disturbing that little slope. And that slope is probably, 4 feet? It's not a big thing, it's just everything there is so soft. I have 10 acres, and all the properties like that, and we walk it from front to back, and,
Okay, I'm trying to get to the bottom of the two actions here. So you're doing erosion control around the gazebo, and then you're also doing, I don't know what mag mix is. It says 4 yards
so
of mag
that's-
mix.
So, maybe there's in one of the
That's
photos here.
fine.
So install under trees on the
So-
right of the parking, which I assume is there.
So this is the area they're talking about, so.
So the right, is that standing and looking toward the pond, or is that at the pond looking toward the?
So here.
See, I just,
So this is the natural material there, it's like
Yeah.
a really soft mulch?
is that the mag mix?
Yes.
Is that what mag mix is?
No, that's natural, mag
That's just
mix
the
is
litter,
this. Yeah, so mag mix is this, it's the natural material that looks like this, and they just come in and they'll put it in so it all looks like this again.
So basically mulch.
Yeah, but it's not thick like bark mulch?
It's fine.
Yeah, because that's what that is.
Okay, so
That's
that's
just
gonna be
natural.
under the trees, to the right of parking. Okay, so install the mulch near the table, which I assume is this,
So this.
right?
Right.
That is on the side of pond.
So
That's on the side
anywhere,
of the
so
pond.
yeah, anywhere it was disturbed, we'll put it back.
And then it says this is for labor to work on pond. Now that's,
No, that's all
when he
it is.
says on pond, he means all this work that
He
you
means all
just
this-
described.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's all that works.
All right, it's not really on the pond, it's on the banks of the pond. All right.
They really are great guys. I mean,
Okay.
they wanted
Just
to
wanted
do
to-
that if you asked me to do something, they do it.
Okay. Any other questions?
You satisfied?
I think so, now I understand what's happening. Yeah.
My only question is, what do you do with the runoff? It's gonna go down across there anyway. That's the thing about
Right.
Does that need to be more of a crushed stone or something that, so as it doesn't put just,
Well, I guess that's where the mulch or that erosion control blanket and the clover is coming in.
But that's,
yeah, but
that's up at the top.
higher, that's up around the,
Well, that's,
But
and
that's where
also
he
gonna
says
go on
it's
the
coming
slope.
from.
Which slope? The slope up by the gazebo or this?
So from the gazebo, the slope where the erosion is starting, and they're bringing the machinery up that little 4-foot incline, so it's gonna go there too. And that whole, along the whole, instead of just where they were bringing the equipment, you figure might as well do the whole thing.
this is what I'm talking about, this business here.
That's where a picture would say, give a lot of, a picture, a drawing of what you're gonna do and where would take the place of a lot of these questions,
So,
because
I didn't want, so
hard
my
to
phone was
cover.
having a problem, and if you put it on vibrate, it doesn't, so I left it in the car. I have a picture that might clarify if you let me run down for 2 minutes, come back up.
it is on your phone.
It's on my phone,
It just seems like you would put maybe crushed stone or something down for a ways there to help keep the washing. from-
Well, you're talking about 3 yards of crushed stone on the roadway and compact it. That's just on the road piece of it, so it's not,
I'm talking more,
I'm more of a fan of a green, like the clover.
Well, that was
instead of
the other
crushed stone.
considerations, we wanted to do something that also looks natural.
Right.
So even in deciding, I mean, crushed stone just looks ugly
Right.
outside, well,
Well, I would.
there's no other crushed stone anywhere there, it's all natural, so.
yeah, it's also really
So-
shady.
So even when we
Yeah.
looked at the erosion control plant growth, so you even have options like vinca, for example, but it's not really natural for that area, and there's no water, so you can't go down and water it, and I've used the white touch clover in the past, and that pretty much grows anywhere and looks
I
pretty
guess maybe what I'm thinking here is that, is there a way of diversifying the water so it is not concentrated in any one spot? That's why it's
Like
eroding,
spreading
because
out.
if it just can kinda,
There's no pools anywhere, it's not like collecting and pouring.
yeah, it goes,
Do you think it's channelizing?
well, that's what it looks
It's
like.
found in the town, it seems to have.
But if you had it so it was
That's
spread
the
out
channel?
over more of an area, it wouldn't channelize.
They
I
want
don't,
to put more
where's the
stone,
water?
More crushed stone, you think?
I don't know about that, but just make it
Maybe,
spread.
maybe what they should do is start with what you're proposing, and then go from there. If it continues to channelize or
Yeah.
whatever, then take
Yeah, 'cause
further
we probably
steps.
I think we have enough time, it's still early fall for it to, the clover will grow, I'm not worried about that, and then see what it looks like.
Yeah, but
And, putting,
Because there
low-
never was, on Boathouse Way, it's so old, nobody ever puts, I mean, it's mostly dirt, used to be crushed gravel and dirt, but it's mostly dirt now, so we'll have all new crushed.
well, I think also putting low plantings, if you, it would
Oh, okay.
slow the water down.
I would love to, I didn't think
Yeah.
you'd want to see
Especially
that.
maybe at the top of these.
Yeah,
runnels.
better than stone, I think.
Oh, I'd love to, yeah.
Personally, that's what I would.
Yeah, no, I didn't think we could do anything like that, so I didn't wanna,
I mean, well, but I don't know
I didn't wanna
how,
propose too much, you know what I mean?
well, I don't know how close you are, that's the problem too, is a plan would show where you are, because we generally wouldn't like a lot of work in the 50, but from 50 to 100, go for it.
Oh, yeah, we're,
Plantings are good.
So we're about 125.
Where the gazebo is?
Yeah, but we still don't wanna go wild because it just looks out of place, So we wanna keep it rustic.
These two
Because that's
photographs
what
actually
everybody else is
If you guys
too.
want to see this, so this is the gazebo.
Oh,
See?
yeah.
And
Oh, it
then now
is?
you're standing here. on
Oh,
this
I see
gravel
the
pad.
chairs there, okay.
So once this erosion control's in place, it
Yeah,
affects this
yeah,
area,
yeah.
which is in turn causing this here.
Right, oh yeah, this is all bare,
You
yep.
see?
Mhm.
1, 2, 3.
Yep, I
so
see
you
that.
kind of
Okay.
spread the water. Spread the
Plantings
water out.
along that slope, good.
Yeah, so that's what we were figuring, we should put the Dutch
That's how it
pallet.
goes.
I see, yeah, that's,
You
thank
connect
you
the
for
dots with
clarifying
the-
that.
you can
yeah.
see at the top of that
Those
picture.
chairs represent those chairs there.
So once he puts the control in
And
at
that's
the
where
base of the
what's washing
gazebo, it's
down.
gonna affect the rest of that.
Yeah.
And they said if we get approval, they can schedule their work to begin this week, so, before we get one, right?
Okay, should I make a motion to approve the?
So, okay, so first of all, if you're so moved, to ratify the enforcement order, because I just signed this to get it out. And then figure out where to go from there.
Okay.
So it might be a couple of steps here.
Somebody want to make a motion to ratify the enforcement order?
Okay, I'll make a motion to ratify the enforcement order for 10 Fort Pond, Littleton, U 27180.
It's actually 10 Fort Pond, Acton.
Oh, Acton, Littleton.
Yeah, it's 3.5 acres in the little thing.
Oh,
It's
cool.
unusual.
Acton,
Do I
Littleton.
hear a second on that?
Second.
All those in favor?
All right.
Okay, so we get that part cleared. And then you need a motion to let him go ahead and try and stabilize this slope and run off to the pond.
Yeah.
Somebody get so moved?
Sorry, I was reading this part here while you were talking. Can you say that one more time? Can you make a motion?
Yeah.
That we allow him to go ahead and stabilize and follow the plan that's been presented to clean up the area there and keep it from eroding into the pond.
And I can go out there and work with them too.
Okay,
So, yeah.
all right. You
Second.
seconded it. You seconded it. Rachel
All right.
seconded it already.
All of those in favor?
Aye.
And you'll report back to us as to how this all project all works?
Yeah, absolutely, sure, and I'll bring pictures that came out.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right,
Okay.
thank
Thanks
you.
for coming in.
Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Amy.
All
You got
right.
the enforcement order for us to sign?
No, it's just need to ratify it. I already signed
Okay.
it, so it's
All right.
good to go.
So it looked like we had a couple of things, if we went back up the list of things. One of them is the bylaw regulatory.
Yes, I don't know if you wanted to wait till you had a bigger crowd.
We can, I'm just,
What was, I think, I'm not sure if you all had taken a look at the red line. The stormwater was the only final piece. I added the language, which I think we talked about whenever we talked about this last. In the case of a single-family house, the Massachusetts stormwater standard shall be applied to the maximum extent practical.
And, oh, that was for a single-family house?
Yeah.
I thought that would, didn't that cover 3 houses or something, up to 3 houses or something?
Under the stormwater regs, a single-family house is exempt. So in this case, a single-family house, we need to do the best they can. Something like 2 to 4 need to do the best they can, so that would still apply. And then 4 to 9 or whatever is more is a full.
Well, I was just wondering if it shouldn't be put in there that whatever the 2 to 4 or 1 to 4 or whatever it is ought to be, would be do the best you can.
Well, this says all residential projects creating more than one dwelling unit, yeah, has to be, comply. And then but then the, activities with just, even a 1 residence will be covered by this last thing, which is a net increase within the buffer zone of more than 1,000 square feet or 5%, whichever is less. That would apply to all activities that cause this to happen, even if it's more than 1 house, right? Wait, is that right?
Yes.
But then you say in case of a single-family house.
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
thought there was specific number of single-family houses.
3 to 5 or whatever.
Well, I think it was 2 to 3, 1 to 3 or something, if I remember correctly.
Well, this covers one.
I know, but that's why I'm saying it should be, rather than 1, it should be
Okay.
1 to 3.
Yeah. I see what you're saying, yeah.
Well, except that further up, doesn't it say anything more than one?
Yeah, but-
It's here.
Yeah, more than one dwelling unit though must demonstrate compliance. So this is just carving out a single house.
So according to the state regs, maximum extent practical applies to 4 or fewer lots. Single-family homes are exempt. And then there's all sorts of multifamily.
But I mean, we
homes.
could set, rather than going for 4, we could say 1 to
Yeah.
3 or something.
Yeah.
Now, can I see that for a second, Anna?
Yeah, because this would just carve out only a single-family house would be the maximum extent practical.
So that would get rid of number 2, though. That would be contradicting number 2.
Right, because number 2 is saying all residential projects with more than one dwelling unit has to comply in
Yeah.
full. But I think Jim was saying, weren't we talking about having this maximum extent practicable apply to 1 to 3 houses?
I thought it was just a single-family home, but, because everything was gonna basically go up a standard.
I guess it depends which year. But I was just thinking that, well, you said 1 to 4 was in their regs, and I was just,
1 is exempt, 4 or fewer lots is the maximum extent practical.
yeah.
So if you have 5 or more, you're in it.
So this is creating more stringency both on a single-family house, which has to meet the maximum extent practicable, and
Well, it depends how you interpret it.
2 to 4 have to meet it instead of having the maximum.
Anything more than 1.
Right, anything more than 1 has to meet it,
Yeah.
whereas it's maximum extent practical under the Wetland Protection Act, right? So, I guess the question is, do we want to say also that 2 to 3 houses have to do the maximum extent practicable? And we'd be.
Well,
just a
think of
little-
44 Bruce, because that was what, three lots?
Yeah,
And that was a pretty big
yeah.
thing as it turned out.
But actually, 1 was existing and 2 were new.
I forget what it was. I know 1 was out of the buffer zone, but
1 was the existing house that had been there for 100 years, and the
Yeah.
other one, but there's 2 that are new.
2 new.
Okay, so this will just be a little bit, this will be just applying to one family house, which, I mean, your argument about three dwellings being quite a significant development is a good one. So I think maybe this is just the change we want. What do you think?
I don't know, other than the engineer came in and it got very expensive for them to do all that engineering for 1 house or 2 houses.
That's why it says maximum extent practicable for 1 house.
For 1 house. It gives a single-family home.
If they
a
meet
break.
this, this
That's
1,000 feet of
board
5%.
members, I mean, it's just my opinion.
And maybe we should have this discussion when
I mean, that's
the other
giving
3 people here, too.
some leeway for single families, so that they
Right.
don't have to do all of it. So it's like only if they're building several houses at a time, which means it's
Right.
more development, I mean.
Right,
not
2
really
to,
putting a
2 to
lot of
4,
pressure on-
yeah.
Right, I mean, that should be something that's factored in. This shouldn't, just your normal homeowner who's making just a regular house, this shouldn't really impact them too much at all.
Right.
So I don't. If you're building 3 houses on a lot, are you living in all 3 houses? I think you can afford the engineering.
What do you think, Carl? Do you wanna look at the language?
Yeah, I look at the language.
Is this gentleman that was just in here, it says 10-foot pond here, and it's 10-foot pond, the one and the same?
Yes, he is. No, I did have another question if you want to consider something. Under wetland setbacks for new activities, the no disturbance area, except, it reads, except as noted, no vegetation may be disturbed, and the area should remain unchanged from its pre-project state. And I don't know if in that area where you want to allow work in lawns for a fenced wall, regrading and then back to lawn, so you're not really changing conditions. Pervious deck or patio. I don't know if you wanted to mess with a no disturbance area anymore, just leave it alone.
This is for grandfathered areas that are already lawn.
Yeah.
I mean, could we, I was thinking of leaving it like a case-by-case basis. You know, minors, you could say minor work within lawn areas on a case-by-case basis will be considered, something like that. And so each time we will consider
You
the
need that
impacts.
latitude, you need that latitude.
It depends if-
Some
it depends if you want
things
the
are not
latitude or not.
particularly,
Mm.
it's not gonna kill the world.
And of course, you know, you think of Turkey, do you want
Right.
fences, walls, patios? I mean,
It could
obviously,
be a-
people
could
want
be a-
them.
Could be a lot.
Yeah. Or just leave it as is, no.
I'd leave it as is. It's gonna be
I
way too.
mean, could we allow places that are already lawn? Could we allow the minor activities that are allowed under the Wetland Protection Act within the 50, or within the 50 to 100?
Well, minor activities in the buffer zone that require no filing under the DEP regulations shall continue to require no filing under these regulations. But almost all those minor activities are outside the 50 anyway.
I thought within the 50, we wouldn't consider, because it's no disturb, right? I mean, I thought that the minor activities would be from the 50 to 100.
Yeah, but you get somebody that's got a young family or something, and they wanna fence the kids in or something.
Or a dog, or.
Yeah, I mean, it's not,
I could see fences going in.
yeah.
Or sometimes
those are
regrading the
blocks.
lawn to take off the curse, it's gonna be lawn to lawn. You're gonna have a disturbance, but it's lawn to lawn. And maybe a retaining wall at the bottom, you know, so you get all these things
Right.
where you kind of see where they wanna do it.
Maybe we should have more of a performance standard instead of citing every little thing, just say, so, you know, activities within areas that are already lawn, within the 50, shall, you know, meet a certain minimum impact or something.
It doesn't,
Well, shall not, maybe we should say no regrading allowed, no.
well, you take the guy there who wants to put the wall in and put a fence on the wall, just because of the steep slope.
Yeah, I mean, that changes the drainage and everything. I would think we wouldn't allow that.
And I I haven't learned these in a while. So a fence, providing it will not constitute a barrier to wildlife movement, is a minor activity, does not require filing.
A fence that does not block wildlife? Is that
Yeah,
what it is?
movement.
That, in other words, you can't fence their cats in.
Yeah, because that means the coyotes can't get any other piece. But it would be, and I think, well, this was before the new regs, whoever's the guy down, kind of lives behind you, wanted to put in the stone wall. And, you know, stone wall's not gonna stop anybody, it was sort of and that was fine.
Right.
So, the way things are written right now, a fence could be allowed in the 50. If it's like an open bar fence type thing.
Wait, the way it's written right now?
The way the bylaw is written right now.
I mean, I can see.
Minor
some-
activities are allowed, a fence in the 50 is allowed.
How about a chain link?
I wouldn't consider that to be allowed wildlife passage. If it's a short section and wildlife can get around it, you know, I think if it was a stone wall, it's something that administratively, I might just say, fine. If it's not gonna be any regrading, if it's already in lawn, you know, I might feel comfortable saying that. If it gets more complicated than that, it's you need to run it by the full commission. But right now, you could allow it. So I guess really the question is would you, and this could also be a policy, not necessarily be in the regs, would you consider regrading a lawn and turning it back into lawn? Something that would not be allowed in the 50-foot. It changes drainage.
I wouldn't allow it with as a minor modification. But if they came in.
But it
with the
is
plan-
work in the no disturbance area.
It's not like it's a permanent structure or anything being put in, it's just a regrading to maybe make the yard safe enough for someone to mow it without getting a lawnmower tipped over.
Because it reads right now, except as noted, which is basically invasive species, no vegetation may be disturbed and the area should remain unchanged from its pre-project state.
I mean, that regrading, if it's dangerous, that is one of the stipulations in a waiver.
What,
They could apply
safety?
for a waiver for safety.
I'd almost like
Depends how you start
the wall, would-
defining.
the thing, what I'm thinking about is that when we looked at, the wall would be a permanent, would stop any more further.
Erosion?
Yeah, or anything going into the, and it would raise it up enough so it could be a safe deal to run a lawnmower along it. And as long as it isn't higher than the top of the grade, it would still have the water go sheet across it, or,
Yeah, I thought our argument there was that, why would he want to mow anyway, if it's within the 50? Why don't you just let it grow up?
think about it, would you want a bunch of weeds that are right on the edge of near your house and what have you?
Well, he has a lot of lawn in addition to that little area.
I mean, people spent the kind of money they want a pristine looking lot too.
Well, they should have known that going into it, which is
Wow.
what the developer,
Lawn chemicals then go in the wetland?
Yeah.
what the developer is supposed to tell them. What you see is what you get.
Although that lawn was put in there prior to the current regs.
And it was to stabilize the toe of the slope. That's what the lawn was to do. And the trouble is you let some of that stuff go or don't keep it maintained, next thing you know, you got poison ivy and goldenrod.
Well, bees like goldenrod, birds like poison ivy. And if people don't go in there, it's all right.
Yeah. Poison ivy cat bride makes a great little fence.
Yes, it does.
I mean, mean, he was going to the extreme, he was talking about a swimming pool and all that, eventually.
Right.
And I would caution him, seems to me that was outcroppings of big rock somewheres along
Yeah.
there, because it was a high knoll. I would, you better dig some test holes first. Oh, boy. Well, the same way that other house was that wants to put the patio and the cat fence. That was sitting up on top of pretty stiff outcroppings of rock, at least the first time we saw it. I don't know
Yeah.
what happened when they put the house in. But that was,
They didn't do any blasting, did they?
No.
a lot of them use those hammer things on an excavator too to break stuff up today.
All right, well, it sounds like in
Sleep
order
on
for
it.
us to, yeah, for us to make a decision. we would
Yeah.
It just seems like you need to go
Yeah.
a little latitude into it,
Yeah.
that's all, it's just,
Yeah, and it's hard to put it in a little latitude without opening the gate. That's
Yeah.
always the,
yep. I think you've done a respectable job of doing it, it just seems like there's things that just need to have some latitude, without making a big deal out of it. Have we, what was your other stuff you had?
my other
marked?
stuff was 51 Hartwell, which is one of the CR encroachments. She did come up with a planting plan. It's going to need some work, but I don't know if you wanted to do a site walk. It's either like kind of now or next spring.
Depends when they plan to go ahead and want to get going on it.
Well, they don't want to do it at all.
Or is it just a proposal? Or is it just a proposal?
I mean,
So they'll wait, no,
so they're waiting, yeah. They are not going to do it this fall.
Existing?
This is the whole restoration area,
Oh, wow.
This is the play structure, and the sand is here, and the pool is kind of over here, so this is sort of the CR line. It needs some work, but I think there's stuff, and she's got lilac and Rosa Sharon and forsythia here, so I'm not too sure about some of these, and I'm not sure what
They'll put in
catmint
pines
is.
in.
It probably all was white pine,
Yeah.
so. Viburnums, winterberry, blueberry, so she's got some good stuff, so. I don't know if you want to try to address this fall, or put it off.
Well, is it something that kind of needs a discussion or something with the homeowner, so as they can be formulating a plan?
Well, that's exactly it, but I'm not sure if there's much point unless you guys have seen the site and get a feel for it.
I don't mind doing a site walk. Anybody else want to do a site walk? It's like,
Depends when it is, yeah.
because
I
there's
think we
still
sh-
good vegetation.
I think we should.
I don't think I would encourage white pine particularly.
I think it was white pine.
I'm just thinking how tall they grow.
How what?
How tall they get to be. I mean, I've got stuff that's
Oh, yeah.
100 feet tall.
This is not near their house.
It's conservation land, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that the whole point? Yeah.
I would mix, pine with other hardwood, successive by
The thing about pines, you don't have to rake enough leaves.
She's not gonna be raking up those, well, that's the thing, they're gonna blow in, yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely mix it with other, top succession trees like maples and oaks.
Then they ought to get their water in for the light department for the free trees they're giving away.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. They like that. I don't know how, Rose of Sharon really multiplies really quickly.
Is that native? What is Rose of Sharon?
It's a tall shrub. Right?
I know what it looks
Oh,
like.
okay.
I don't think it's native.
But it doesn't.
I don't know if it's
It doesn't, it kind of branches out. And
It
as you
doesn't-
say, it gets tall, but
It doesn't
takes-
spread like forsythia spreads.
Well,
No,
my
it's
Rose of
more
Sharon
upward.
spread, I see little babies everywhere.
I don't, we've got one on the edge of the lawn down at the lower driveway, and it just, and it kind of, shoots up and shoots up, and it doesn't bloom until probably August.
Yeah.
It's interesting, my wife's got a rose bush, it's on the end of the stone wall, up at the house, near the apple tree there on the front lawn, but that seems to bloom, almost blooms all summer long, which would be something if you wanted to pollinate bees and stuff, that would.
Right.
So, Anna, what are the afternoons that are usually good for you? What's your schedule these days?
It changes.
I know.
That's the trouble, it changes all the time. I keep wanting it to be Wednesday, but then my son has, soccer games, and it's hard to plan. But I try to have it Wednesdays as a short day, or it could be Fridays.
And is there any day in particular that works for you, Carl?
Wednesdays are good for me.
Like a 5 o'clock or something?
Yeah.
I know you're a lost cause.
Yeah.
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 It's not- it's
Well,
not before
the
5:30.
clocks are gonna be, when do the clocks change? Because that will have an
Well, it's
impact.
Halloween, right?
Is it that weekend?
So 5 o'clock may not work anymore.
May not work anymore, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
difficult trick or treating,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah, it's just
Sure.
before that.
Unless we get out there before then.
Yeah. Well, that'd be either this week or next week.
Could try and shoot for that.
Wednesday, the 17th or the 24th? Sure. Why don't I shoot for Wednesday, the 24th?
Yeah.
And see if I can get anybody at
That sounds
Yeah.
good.
5 o'clock. Let's see if we get some people.
What's the address again?
51 Hartwell.
He keeps complaining about the soil being soft, that must be all pine needles.
It's all pine needles, yeah.
Huh?
It's all.
Over,
Yeah.
over a period of,
And there's not much there left now that he's done it. I don't know if anybody wanted to go to the Keith Bergman retirement, but here's the actual flyer for it. They just need to.
It's today. The
Yeah,
RSVP
she
date.
says, well, tomorrow morning's okay, but they need to know if anybody wants to go.
I just replied yes today, but I do have a meeting in Boston that day, so it's going to be hard but I'll try.
I don't think it really matters too much. The community garden fees, Andrew mentioned this last time, they're $10. I do think they need to go up because the water's just driving me crazy.
how much? $15,
Yeah.
$20?
15.
I think the 15 will cover it.
I think I'll have a mutiny on my hand, double the fee.
Well, the other thing is,
Which actually might be a good thing,
I was just thinking if maybe there'd be a fine for anybody caught leaving the water running. They
Yeah,
could
but that's
pay the
never,
bill.
gonna happen.
So 20? How about 20? Is that for the
I
whole
don't wanna
summer?
double it.
For the
Yeah.
whole summer?
Yeah,
I thought it was 15.
it's 10 now,
Oh, it's 10. Got
Yeah.
it. So 15. Yeah.
raised from 10 to 15.
Yeah, 15.
Maybe we should input do they sign anything, sign up or have a form or something?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That the reason for the increase is the use of water?
It says right on there that, the fee is X, and if the water usage goes up, the fee's gonna go up,
Yeah.
so.
Okay.
you know.
I can see it in the early spring, because it was dry for a while there.
Yes.
It was almost drought conditions. But after that, I think we've had plenty of water.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hardly use my hose at all this summer, so my garden's just.
Yeah. It's gone
Loaded.
mildewy. It's gone, my peppers rotted.
Yeah.
It was a lot of
The tomatoes exploded.
split.
My character like this fat.
Just noticed this Friday real quick. She's saying prestigiated for the pines, so they're just gonna be little telephone poles. I would recommend that they get something that's actually spreading, that will develop canopy.
How about,
I mean, they could just do a straight
rhododendron
species.
could do that.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
of the
and-
trees.
Yeah, I told her now at least she has sort of a planning plan. We're gonna need to work on the species.
Okay, great.
Mountain
'Cause
laurel too,
Sumac.
that spreads out.
Yeah.
Well, if it was already forested, this proposal is not gonna return it to any sort of forested state.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. more
I just
on-
noticed that just now, so.
Yeah.
Is there any more official business?
There is not.
Somebody want to make a motion to adjourn this meeting at 8:20, 8:42?
I'll second it.
10:40?
9:40. He can't second.
Oh, sorry, he's not.
Now you can.
Now second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Well, we're gaining.